Off top. So, 1904 Olympic Marathon was wild. So they played in incredibly hot conditions, so hot that half of the competitors didn't even finish. The winner of the competition was then found to have been driven part of the way. USA, USA. And he was knocked out of the competition. The true winner of the competition had, I guess, what could be considered a performance-enhancing cocktail, maybe, but it involved a poison that's used on pesticide called strychnine and good old brandy. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
What up, Charlie? What is brandy? Is that like a bourbon? I don't know. I don't know liquor like that. I drink it, but I don't really know much about it.
I think it's just a brandy.
Oh, it's a brandy? Because like bourbon is a whiskey, right? So What are the different types? It's like whiskey, brandy is its own category, tequila, vodka, like that's all.
It's a distilled wine. Wow.
Ooh, well, welcome, Disney property. I don't know why we're starting this by talking about alcohol, but we are anyway. So performance enhancing.
Do you think you could run a marathon tomorrow if you had to?
This is kind of funny. So my, the right answer is I should have just said no off the bat, but my answer is yes, because you know that I'm if nothing, a very confident person. If nothing else, I'm a supremely confident person. But you know where I get more confidence from? From my wife's husband, my wife's husband. That's me. My wife's dad, my father-in-law. So I guess it was probably 15 years or so ago, up and ran a marathon. Took him forever. Feet were bleeding, was sore and hurt. He's an orthopedist, by the way, so I'm sure that he would have advised himself not to do it, but just up and completed a marathon. So I kind of think, the fact of the matter is, if you're not timing me, how many hours do you think it'd take? Yeah, I can stay moving for, 6 hours. How long would it take if I'm not running?
Yeah. So I've thought about this a little bit. I think I could run a half marathon tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Zero training.
Yeah.
So if I ran the first 13 miles in a little under 2 hours, I could walk like 6 miles, run 6 miles, and make it in like 6 hours.
Your fiance, Carrie, is actually a runner. Like us talking about it, she gets up at 5 a.m. and runs every day because she's a runner, and we're just dismissing it.
She's training for a marathon, trying to qualify for Boston now, and is doing like sprint workouts and getting ready for all that stuff. And it's driven her nuts before. We did a 10-mile race, and I didn't train for it whatsoever. We finished just a couple minutes apart.
Why would you say that? We got to edit that out. I would like your marriage to be happy and healthy. Before it starts, you got to set the right tone, and the right tone is not pointing out that.
No, the right tone is no easy bucket.
You got a competitive relationship, no easy buckets. Well, the bucket wasn't easy, but she won. You're pushing me to a weird take, but you know how I feel about categorizing sports. Like, I'm not somebody who's like hard and fast, like this is a sport, this is not a sport. But I do believe running kind of falls into one of them categories. I believe that you need an active defense to be a sport.
Competitive exercisers.
Yeah, it's a competition. Like a lot of these things that you consider sports, I consider competitions, which I don't think is disrespectful. Like it's not, I don't mean any judgment. You can be an incredible competitor, and a great competition can take a lot of skill, but something to me about sports requires somebody playing defense against you. If it's you against yourself, sorry, golf, it ain't it. You're not a sport. You're not.
It's you against the course.
Yeah. Well, nope. I need active human defense. How about that? Golf, sorry, you're an activity.
You don't
very
like
popular
when
activity.
It's just like a board of white guys at every country club that decided to tiger-proof courses.
That was defense again, but it's not active defense. Not a sport. It's just not. Curling, sport. Got some active defense. People throwing their little stones out there. Some people say it's not a sport. I think it's a sport.
Hold on. Aren't the people brushing? Those are their teammates.
Yeah, the people brushing their teammates, but you can play defense with your stone. I consider curling a sport, I think. Nope, never mind. Defense not active. Curling, you're out. You're out, curling. Beat it. You're a summer or a winter Olympic activity, not sport.
We were careening towards the take that the top curler in the world was a better athlete than Usain Bolt.
Yeah, that's a bad take. Bad take. Track and field, not a sport. Until somebody trying to tackle you, not a sport. That's all.
Should we talk about a real sport?
Yeah.
The only sport, the gladiator game.
You're trying to transition us? Don't force me into your box. Don't force me. No, please do force me in your box because I was going nowhere fast. Yeah, we can talk about football. There's a lot of football things I want to talk about. At some point in this episode, I want to unveil my Final Four teams. We did pretty good last year with the Final Four. I got the Final Two right. I think most of the Final Four.
3 for 4.
Yeah, we were 3 for 4, Final Four, and got the Final Two right. And we were right on the Super Bowl winner before the season starts. So that adds a lot of pressure to this. The Final Four selection in football is kind of weird in part because we all know that football is 100% injuries, but we can't predict who are going to have the injuries, and those have a lot of impact. There's just so many variables. So I think more than anything, the best thing you can do is pick the teams that you think are going to be the 4 best teams. And with the way that things break down, I guess you could factor in divisional opponents and record and schedule because that matters too. But I think mostly my strategy for picking teams is line play. Like, that's where I start. I feel like that's a lesson that we often always forget because it's not fun to talk about, especially guys like us who talk about this on TV or elsewhere. Nobody, as soon as you sit down and say, all right, O-line, everyone's changing the channel. But O-line, to me, is one of the best predictors of how successful a team is going to be. And get out of here, you stat nerds who are going to show me the analytics that tell me I'm wrong. But if you're a stat nerd who wants to show me the analytics that tell me I'm right, get on in here. I appreciate you. So we'll get to that at some
You just made the case for why they shouldn't pay running backs.
No, that's not the case for why they shouldn't play running backs. But they shouldn't pay running backs. I'm not arguing that running backs
I'm just kidding. I just totally derailed
Yeah,
you.
but that's fine. My argument was never that it's logical to pay running backs. Like, I get all the reasons why you don't pay running backs. My argument is that it sucks for them and it's unfair, which is a whole nother conversation. But appreciate you first putting me on the rails and then derailing me. Great co-host. Love it. Nice shirt. I love the colors.
Thanks, man. So offensive line play.
No,
Final Four or the other story?
Yeah, we're going the other story, and then we'll go back to our Final Four. So the other story involving offensive line play is Michael Oher. So if you don't know, he's the Blind Side, the guy who the book was written about, and then the New York Times article that was optioned for the movie that made $309 million on a $29 million budget and got Sandra Bullock an Oscar. I've never seen the movie. Reason why I've never seen the movie is, like, it wasn't marketed to me. I wasn't interested in that movie. And then Michael Oher was drafted by the Ravens, and I was with Michael Oher a lot, and he didn't like the movie. And so I was like, he don't want me to see it, because that was the impetus to see it. Is like, oh, I'm working with this guy and I like him. I should go see the movie. He hated the depiction of him in the movie, and so I had no reason to see it. So now I imagine most people know he is suing the Tui family, who is the white family that supposedly adopted him and guided him to Ole Miss, where he became a great player and then a first-round pick for the Ravens. The movie was widely celebrated at the time, but I think also at the time people like fairly criticized it for like falling into these white savior tropes, but they could kind of fly under the radar for that stuff because they said it was a true story. But it's very dramatized, and I think the reason why Mike didn't like it was because they made him seem like he was like a buffoon. Like he came off as like he had a disability, frankly, when you're watching the movie. And that's not the Michael Oher that I experienced. Like, from the point of the little boy teaching him the basics of football was part of it. They taught him how to use a bed was one of the things that they did in the movie. There was other things. And again, I haven't seen the movie, but this is from articles that I've read that also the final scene or the final scenes in the movie like plays on Black stereotypes of like over hypersexualized mandingos in the bad neighborhood, kind of sexually threatening Leanne Tui and Michael defending her. So all that aside, Michael's upset because when he thought that he was signing papers to kind of finalize an adoption for him into the Tui family, he was actually signing over control of his life, a conservatorship, which I think a lot of us know more about now because of Britney Spears, if nothing else. But in doing so, they got to make decisions for him. And one of the decisions that they made, according to Michael, was the way that they split up the deal that they made for the movie. The money that was the proceeds from the movie, they split equally amongst all their kids. And obviously, if that was true, that seems kind of unfair and like something that Michael Oher, the catalyst for all of this, would not be comfortable with and is now suing them to, I guess, eventually recoup some of that money. So did you have any thoughts on that before I get into what I'm feeling?
I'm just stunned that Sandra Bullock did not walk on the field and teach Michael Oher how to pass block.
The most wild thing out of this is, maybe it's not the most wild thing, but one of the wild things is people calling for Sandra Bullock to give her Oscar. Like, I don't know. I guess we just pile on the famous people, and sometimes the famous people deserve it. But it's like Sandra Bullock showed up, read a script, and acted it in a movie that y'all bought. Like, I feel like there's so many other people to hold accountable, starting with probably Michael Lewis, who was friends with the Tuohy father before. Was it Sean Tuohy before all of this? And Michael Lewis, who framed the book, which the book is actually more about. I mean, they use Michael Oher's story, but they're attempting to like Moneyball the football story by talking about left tackles. The book is kind of about like the importance of left tackles in more modern football, but they use Michael Oher's story, which is a compelling one. The one that was told is a compelling one. They use that to set it all up. So I guess you could start being upset with them. You could be upset with the people who wrote the movie, the people who optioned the movie, the New York Times. Like, there's lots of people to be upset with before you get to Sandra Bullock. Not that I'm caping for Sandra Bullock. It's fine. She can give her Oscar up, but it just feels like a waste of energy if you want to be mad at someone. So the thing about this that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, not rubbed me the wrong way, that upset me, frankly, is something that happens all the time. And it is the college sports system, honestly. It's exploiting kids or young people and who have special talent, and everyone benefits from them disproportionately compared to how much they benefit. And that's what kind of really makes me uncomfortable. And that's what is gross about this. There are lots of allegations that if 100% of what Michael Oher is saying is true, then what happened is reprehensible. If none of it is true, I still don't feel great about the fact that Hugh Freeze, who has now done lots of things that he should be ashamed of, like rode Michael Oher from being a high school coach to like a super rich college coach. Leanne Tuohy is writing books and doing speaking circuits all on the back of Michael Oher's name in this story that does not seem nearly as benevolent as they initially frame it as. And the same is true for the Sun. SJ is like working in sports now at Central Florida, and Sean Tuohy does broadcast stuff for the Grizzlies. It just feels a lot like everyone is benefiting off of this, and Michael Oher benefited in no way. It doesn't feel like he benefited any more from this than he would have normally, because of all people, Ozzie Newsome drafted him. Ozzie Newsome is not drafting him because his stock went up from a movie. Ozzie Newsome drafted him because he could play. And I'm sure there's some benefit to him having been associated with the Tuohy family, but I don't think that it constitutes their ability to kind of springboard off of this into, I think one of the daughters, or the daughter is an influencer now, which all seems connected to whatever fame she's created or that family's created off of Michael Oher. So it all just feels gross, mostly because it's not the system being broken. It's just the system being thrown in our face, because the same thing has happened in college sports for a long time and still happens in college sports, just not at this exaggerated a level.
So I read the book right when it came out, and I think I was a senior in high school, and I think Michael Oher at that point was going into his junior year at Ole Miss. And at the time, I remember thinking like, wow, these are incredible people, and not realizing any of the social implications.
So let me stop you right there. Thank you. Because it was a wildly popular book in movie, and now I can't find nobody who liked either of them, which is like, there were people out here who liked it. So it's not, everyone's on the high horse. They're like, oh, it's so bad, problematic. But a lot of people liked it.
I liked it. I thought the first chapter, which was written about the impact of Lawrence Taylor when he broke Joe Theismann's leg, about how that transformed the left tackle position and made the edge rusher so valuable. I thought that was fascinating. I thought that was actually like sort of ahead of its time with the way that we were talking about football. The thing that you look back on now, and this is, I think the Tuohys are countersuing or have at least had some started their press war where they're saying this is a shakedown for Michael Oher, who filed his lawsuit on the day that his own book was released. And they're essentially fighting over $15 million that are from movie royalties. The part that I think is most reprehensible about all of this stuff is, to your point, the only agency that an athlete in 2009 had in the college football system was choosing where they got to go to school, which would give them the best shot of playing in the NFL. Essentially, if the things that Michael Oher is saying now are true, and you have unique experience that he has not liked this since the beginning. Because the book also talked, it wasn't as heavy-handed as the movie, but it did talk about that there were essentially learning gaps that he had growing up that were filled in very quickly by being adopted by this affluent family. If all those things are true, though, they basically took away this guy's agency, who was a great athlete at the time that they signed this conservatorship or adoption, or however the exact facts come out on this. His agency was gone. He was more or less guided to go to Ole Miss because a former Ole Miss basketball player and cheerleader found this guy who was an undervalued asset by not playing at a fancy school to teach him to be the best left tackle in the United States. And that is effed up because he was the 23rd pick in the draft, but this is someone who is a 3-time All-SEC tackle, one of the first tackles to start as a freshman at Ole Miss, and probably could have started for pretty much any school in the country. And to take away his decision-making of how can I have the best college career and NFL career possible just because you wanted to benefit your alma mater is really, really bad and gross.
Yeah, none of us were there for any of this process, and I have no reason to believe that he had a problem with the book. I know he didn't like the movie, but there is a way to look at this where you see this big athlete kid show up who doesn't have the support that other kids need or deserve, and there's a couple ways to look at it as, oh, let's make sure that this kid has everything he needs so that this special kid's opportunity is not squandered. But then there's also the other way to look at it, like, oh, look at this really impressive young man who doesn't have any guidance. Let's make sure that we get the most out of it. And it certainly seems like the Tuohys are painting a picture that Hollywood got behind, and Michael is painting another picture that it feels like all of us seem primed to believe because it seems more consistent with what we expect, you know?
Yeah, and I do want to note, too, to your point, the book, which I haven't read in 14 years, so if I got some of this stuff wrong, it's very possible. But I remember that the one of the premises of the book was that he was smart and, just had actual learning gaps because of instability in his childhood, which is not what was pointed out in the movie whatsoever.
All right, it's probably more time than I intended to spend on this, so we can move on. I also watched the Balco documentary, but the untold story about that, which raises other ethical questions around sports, but we don't have to get to that. We can save it for another time after you watched it.
I'm going to pitch an episode in the future where me and Bomani talk about Barry Bonds and his legacy in Balco.
All right, I love it.
We can spend an hour talking Barry Bonds. We'll put that in the reminder list of episodes for the future.
Sounds good. All right, then we can get to the main event. Football, the Final Four, that is almost guaranteed to be 75% correct because it was last year. Start with the easy ones, or the easiest one. I think Kansas City is back in the Final Four. That's not a revelation of any kind. They've been in the Final Four every year since Patrick Mahomes has been under quarterback. The keys to this team is they have an offensive line. And I mentioned this at the top. That is one of the foundations. When I'm looking for my projections, that's one of the places I start is look at the offensive line. Your quarterback, no matter how good he is, and we're reminded by this so often. I've told you this a few times. There was one Super Bowl that I predicted the upset and was made to look really good. It was the Eagles against the Patriots, the Nick Foles Super Bowl. And it was all because I was like, no one has blocked this Eagles defensive line. And I look over and don't think that the Patriots going to be able to block them either. I'm not sure that it exactly panned out the way I wanted to, but I was right. And then I got high on to Patrick Mahomes, as we've talked about before, when they played the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. And I knew Patrick Mahomes' O-line was depleted and the Bucs defense was incredible. And I still was like, you know what? Patrick can do it. And then I was reminded, no matter who the quarterback is, if they can't protect him, it doesn't matter. So O-line is a foundational point of a lot of my analysis. I'd be hard-pressed to find me pick a team with a bad O-line to make it deep. So the Chiefs agree with me because they invest in the O-line more than they have receivers, because the big question is, where are they going to find some production out of receiver? I know you're excited. Well, not Kadarius Toney, but you're excited about was Justin Ross from Clemson. Maybe he can turn into something. He was great in college. He hasn't done it in NFL. Kelsey's getting up there in age, but still an effective guy. But I don't think there are any questions about the offense. We all believe that between Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and I guess Matt Nagy is there too, they'll find a way to put up enough points. The question is on the other side of the ball. And those questions were mostly answered towards the end of the year. They had a young defense that played a lot better as the season went on. So we're going to assume that they pick up where they left off and they'll be good enough. And there's one big question about Chris Jones, the best player on their, probably second best player on their team, honestly, but definitely the best player on their defense, the defensive tackle, and he goes to the edge on third down sometimes. Their championship aspirations change dramatically. I don't know about dramatically, but they shift. I still probably keep him in the Final Four if he doesn't show up, but there's not much to talk about with the Chiefs. You all know why we're picking the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, right?
Do you expect their offense to be better in year two?
No.
Yes, I'm calling their Super Bowl championship last year a rebuild.
Yeah, no. You and I were both on that. Like that was one of the first things I said after they won the Super Bowl was like, this was the rebuild year. This was the year that they're like, all right, we're going to retool. We're going to try to prop this thing back up, and they managed to win. The year before was the year that they should have won. And yeah, so anyway, I better know, but good enough. Yeah, I guess the real question is, how healthy can Kadarius Toney be? Because they don't have, that's what they're kind of missing, is this ingredient that can take the pressure off of the rest of their offense, that can just make stuff happen. Travis Kelce did it some last year where you can get it to him in open field, and even as he's a tight end and getting up there in age, he still can turn out big plays, which is nice when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes and defenses that face Patrick Mahomes the way that they do, which is trying to keep everything in front of him. It's nice to have a guy every now and then, the role that Tyreek Hill used to play, and even Michael Hardman when he was healthy could play, where it's like, all right, we don't have to scheme it up. Just get it to this guy, and he's liable to make it happen. Kadarius Toney could be that guy, and then they could be better than they were, but it's really hard. They were the best offense in football, among the best offenses in football. I guess it depends on what metric you use, but they're among the best offenses in football last year with only a few games of Kadarius Toney and no other.
And they also started slower and picked it up. One of the crazy things is the Kelce Mahomes thing, because Kelce's almost 34 years old and hasn't missed a game in a decade playing tight end in the NFL.
That's crazy.
And so it's like, this is an offense that's going to run it until the wheels come off, and I will believe in that duo until otherwise proven wrong.
And that's the thing. I don't think they are going to run until the wheels fall off. I think they are not like the Bills are the team that's like, let's keep doubling down till the wheels fall off. The Chiefs are setting up. Like we mentioned, last year was their rebuild year. They're setting up to be able to make other moves. The big question mark for them offensively is Donovan Smith. I guess, I don't know his big question mark, but he's the question mark. They're replacing the tackle with Orlando Brown Jr., who went on to Cincinnati, with Donovan Smith, who's had, I guess, an up-and-down career is probably the way to put it, but he's looked good in preseason so far, and I'm sure he'll hold up well in that offensive line.
If you were looking at best pass catchers in the NFL, probably is it fair to say this top 5 is? I'm serious, because I think Kelce's right there with Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I can't agree with you. I mean, I get it. It's the cornerback in me. You know how I feel about tight ends, and I understand. I will be first to tell you that Travis Kelce does not deserve to be put into that tight end category. But I think of guys that can break the game, and Travis Kelce is capable of turning plays into big plays, but it's just the cornerback in me is like Tyreek Hill. It's more like, who am I going to lose more sleep over? Justin Jefferson, yeah. Tyreek Hill, yeah. Jamar Chase, yeah. Travis Kelce has got to be down that list. Maybe he's in Cooper Kupp territory, but he's not in the territory with those receivers. I think the way that I would look at it is if you give a poll to defensive coordinators, like, all right, just a blank sheet offense over there. Who would you rather game plan against? I'm guessing that most of them would pick Kelsey before they pick any of those top level receivers.
Follow up. Third down in a playoff game. Is he the top of the list of the guy you'd want to get the ball to get the first down?
I'm not messing with your third downs. I just scored a touchdown on second down with Tyreek Hill. Get out of here. Stop twisting the rules up to try to get on Kelsey.
Team number 2.
Yeah, get out of here. We're not doing this Kelsey thing. Team number 2, the other AFC team, I think is the Ravens. They have question marks, obviously, with the transition offensively, Todd Monken's offense, but I really like the way that they are, the way they think sound, the modernization of their offense. As you know, a lot is made of Lamar Jackson's passing ability. He's never had a problem staying in the pocket or reading quarterbacks. Like, he was good or reading defenses. He was good at that in college. Consistently being accurate, that is where the problem is. But I think given more opportunities, I think part of the problem before was like the opportunities were not there. If you are looking at a guy who's not going to hit every single pass on the money every single time, I think it's probably wiser to give him better opportunities. And the thing that I think the way that I characterize the differences in their offense from the earlier Lamar Jackson to what we're going to now is they were very much like a we do what we do kind of offense. We're going to do this. We're not going to try to trick you. We're not going to try to confuse you. We are a run-heavy offense that's going to feature the quarterback in that running game. And we are going to reduce the formation, get a fullback on the field, extra tight ends, and you're just going to have to stop us. We're going to get 6 yards here and there, and then maybe break a big one. And it's fine if you know it's coming. What they've done now, they're spreading the offense out, and it seems more modern in that it's you have to pick your poison, where if you have a healthy Odell Beckham, Rashard Bateman on the other side, Zay Flowers in the slot, and you put Mark Andrews on the field at tight end, and maybe J.K. Dobbins. And again, I respect offensive lines. They have a good offensive line, one of the better ones in the league. You have all this, assuming Ronnie Stanley can stay healthy and return to his all-pro status at left tackle. Now the question for the defense isn't, can you stop us doing our best thing? The question for the defense is, where do you want to put the help? Do you need help? Are you going to help whoever's covering Odell? Are you going to play softer coverages? Fine. Then we'll do these design quarterback runs where you already are light in the box. We will put the number game even more in our favor by including the running or the quarterback in this game. Okay, fine. You want to stop that? All right. Then you're going to leave one or multiple of these receivers in positions where they are one-on-one or attacking a weak spot in the zone. And so to me, it seems like an obvious upgrade offensively, maybe easier said than done. The big question mark I have for the Ravens the big weakness I have for them is pass rush. I think D-line is almost as important as O-line. They don't have great pass rushers, but they still have a really good defense with a lot of talent, especially in the secondary with Kyle Hamilton, the monster at safety right now, and also
it's gigantic.
Yeah, also Marlon Humphrey, the corner. They got Rocky Sin playing the other corner.
And Marlon Humphrey is banged out. Might miss the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he might, but he's great. And who else? Yeah. They had somebody else that I wanted to mention. Oh, Roquan Smith, who came over last year and kind of changed the complexion of the defense. One of the few inside linebackers who I think are legitimate difference makers. But I feel like those are the teams. You got any input on the Ravens selection?
Are we going to look back after like 6 weeks and just think that Greg Roman wasn't as dumb as we thought?
It's possible.
He did build that whole offense for Lamar, and it worked for like 5 years.
Yeah, it never failed. I don't think he's dumb. I just think that there's a ceiling on what you can do with that offense. And I think you could have won a championship with that offense. They came up short.
First year.
Yeah. And they came up short not getting it done, but the offense wasn't that the offense was bad, but I do think that Lamar Jackson is capable of more. So it's a possibility that we'll look back on this and be like, hey, why do we fix this thing that wasn't broken? But that's just not how I live. I want to get better all the time.
This is the touch and go one for me because in looking at this activity, the AFC was so much more loaded than the NFC.
Yeah.
Like it's jarring when you actually look at it on paper, and it's like, you know, the Bengals, Bills, Dolphins, even the Jets, all could be in that. And like the other thing, the Ravens, the NFC or the AFC North might just be awesome this year.
Like I think the sleeper team is it's not even fair to call them a sleeper. The Cleveland Browns are loaded.
Oh, so I thought you were going to say the Steelers.
Oh, the
Steelers are also a sleeper team because Kenny Pickett didn't suck to end the year, and they go 9-8 every year regardless.
Yep. I guess just raw talent. And again, this goes back to my O-line issue, I think, is I really love the Browns' offensive line. And the weakest point of this team is a player that we've seen play MVP quality football. Like, that's the weak spot. You look around their offensive roster, the defense strong. They have a shutdown corner. They have possibly the best D lineman in football, or one of. Like, Myles Garrett is in that conversation. They got weapons on the edge. They have what I think may be the best football player at running back, and Nick Chubb. Like, he's awesome. Watching Nick Chubb play, watching him play, like I underappreciate how impactful he is. Loaded box, from shotgun, from the dot, like from anywhere, he is effective. On screen pass, like he's an incredible player. And the weakest thing, their offensive line is pretty good. It's really good, actually. The weakest thing on their team is Deshaun Watson. Like from last year, you look back at what they did last year, you're like, where's the problem? It's the guy that we gave $200 million guaranteed to because he was so good and we were so sure that he was going to be great. So, like, I think that is going to be the real sleeper team. The Kenny Pickett, there's still a ceiling on that, I think. Yeah. That's the thing is, like, I could see them surprising people, but I can't see them making a run to the Super Bowl. I could see the Browns doing it.
And, wow. I was going to say, and, like, to me, one of the, like, it's really hard for me to parse Dolphins, Bengals, Bills. Because all of those offenses are just ridiculous.
I mean, it's so hard with the Bengals because, like, I mean, can the quarterback stay healthy a little bit? Like, just get us through a training camp. This year was supposed to be...
Or the Ravens, for that matter. If that's
fair. That's fair. This was supposed to be his first healthy training camp. He couldn't even do it.
Yeah.
It's just... That's tough. And
calf injuries are scary.
I was a little cold on them because of the losses in the secondary that the Bengals had. But in watching the preseason game, Dax Hill at safety, running 4.3s, covering both deep routes. Like, if he can do that consistently, it changed everything. I think DJ Turner, both Dax and Turner, both from Michigan guys. DJ Turner's a young corner who I haven't seen play a ton, but when you read about him, it sounds like he's really good in camp, and that's not something that's like a fluke. Corners normally struggle. Like, you come in the league young, it's hard to play this position where the rules are tougher and the athletes are better and the quarterbacks are more precise. They are filling out, it seems like, in a way that suggests that they're going to be around for a while, and they might be more competitive this year. Because that was my question. Losing those safeties, I think, in Cincinnati mattered a lot. Safeties are the modern-day middle linebackers in that they call the defenses, they make the checks, they're in control, and losing both of their really good safeties I thought was going to be a problem for them. But if Dax Hill can impact the game the way he did, they're going to be good. But they got to stay healthy at quarterback. But yeah, it's fair. It's hard for me to pick the Ravens and then say the problem with the Bengals is the quarterback can't stay healthy, who's made 2 deep playoff runs, been to the championship game last year, been to the Super Bowl last year. Yeah, that's a bad one. Yeah, cut that out.
Well,
Edit
that's also,
out.
I realized there is a lot of fallibility in my take because it was Joe Burrow, Tua, and then Josh Allen, who even hurt his elbow last year and had a steep drop-off in performance. So, healthiest quarterback gets second place in the AFC.
Yeah, it's a feel thing most of the time. The one that I missed last year was it was the Bills. I think that's what it is. That's why I didn't pick the Bills, is because I picked them to be in the Final Four last year, and they came up short. So I'm punishing them. Take that.
When I was looking at that, I was like, I genuinely wonder if so much of this is because of the Josh Allen elbow injury, and the whole season felt really weird after Damar Hamlin's cardiac episode on the field. And it's like, to me, they were so close to like the Chiefs offense that we loved those first 5 weeks of the season that I would be 0% shocked if they were just awesome again this year.
And Von Miller got hurt, which really changed the impact of their defense. But when you bring up the early parts of last season, I can't help but be reminded how Josh Allen in the season opener got revenge on Jalen Ramsey. You remember how he did that?
Oh yeah,
he rubbed his groin.
This is after we were
I was
recording Debatable.
I was so upset.
And we were recording Debatable, and Pablo had just cribbed this take, just straight up plagiarized this take from Bill Barnwell that Josh Allen doesn't run that often early in the season. He said it 4 seconds before Josh Allen annihilated that man.
And it wasn't the annihilation of him as much as it was the post-play where he was rubbing his crotch on him. Didn't love it. As a cornerback, I mean, I'm a Josh Allen fan. Everything you do is good. I love the trash talk, taunt, spike, all that. But be nice to the cornerbacks, please. But Jalen Ramsey deserved it. Didn't he say like Josh Who a while ago or something like that? That was it. He treated Josh Allen like he wasn't anything. All right, let's go over to the other conference, or it's pretty easy. I mean, the Eagles, obviously. If we're talking about the best teams.
One team conference.
Yeah, it's the Eagles. And again, offensive line play. Like, I think they have to replace Sayamalu. They're doing that with Jurgen, I think. But other than that, they got Mailata, Lane Johnson, Kelsey at the center. The O-line is still strong. Of course, we all know about the receivers, and they have a quarterback who was, for most of the season, was probably the best quarterback in football, statistically at least, in Jalen Hurts. And as anyone who listens to this podcast knows, that he is also probably the handsomest quarterback in football. He also had one of the best Super Bowl performances we'd ever seen, with the exception of one play. Otherwise, he would have been Super Bowl MVP and Super Bowl champ. He was incredible, and I have no reason to believe that things are going to change for them. The defense is still loaded, all the pass rushers, and let's not forget, they got Jalen Carter. They had a historical defensive line last year as far as sack production is concerned. Like, they're up there among the greats of all times as far as pressure and sacks are concerned. Last season, they added one of the best inside defensive linemen, pass rushers in recent history out of the rest of their Georgia players onto that team to go next to Fletcher Cox and Jordan and Reddick and Sweat. So, yeah, they're going to be good again. Their schedule is harder, but they're still in the NFC. I got them probably. I'm thinking that I don't have to make my Super Bowl picks yet, but it's hard for me to think of somebody that's going to knock them off in the NFC, especially after what they did last year.
I had no real notes on the Eagles one. I think they have by far and away the best on paper roster in the NFL. Yeah. I think Jalen Hurts is going to continue to get better. Jalen Carter, my favorite thing is to overreact to his preseason performance because his are comical. Yes. They look fake. They look like he's playing against high school kids, and these are NFL centers, even if they don't all start on NFL rosters.
Yeah.
It's preposterous.
It's preposterous. And you can't double everybody. So the pressure is going to be there for them going forward. So as long as – and they're deep too. So I was going to say as long as they stay healthy, but they, more than any other team, could probably survive a couple of injuries. As long as it's not the quarterback, which happened for part of the season last year, they're going to be all right.
They survived it last year.
That's true. They did survive it.
He couldn't even throw the ball for the last 4 weeks of the year.
They survived it. He didn't play in a couple of those games, right? It was one of those games against the other team that I'm going to pick is the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. It's hard to look around and find a team that is more talented than them in the NFC other than the Eagles. And again, the talent goes down to the offensive line also. The receiving core is strong. We've seen, let's talk about preseason to get excited about things. Deuce Vaughn, another serious weapon.
I love him.
He's so fun. He's so small and so explosive. Feels like Darren Sproles all over again, who has been a problem for his entire very long career. So I love that. But it's really, I mean, the offensive, I have concerns about the offense. I don't like that we're overreacting to 1 year of interceptions for Dak Prescott, and you're running Kellen Moore out of town and reshaping the offense more based on timing and on what Mike McCarthy wants to do. Don't love it, but the defense is why you pick this team. They added Stephon Gilmore, opposite Diggs, and obviously they got Micah Parsons and Dexter Lawrence. Like, I often think about teams by where their weaknesses are, and so or where the strengths are and where the weaknesses are. So how you're going to have to compensate, and which ways are you going to have to compensate for the weaknesses on your defense and on your team or your unit, and which positions can handle a more increased load. So in practice. Like if your D-line's not great, maybe you leave your corners on the island if your corners are good and you add extra pass rushers or you add extra people in the box to stop the run. Okay, got it. But what if your D-line is great and your corners are weak? All right, play a soft zone and put pressure on your front four to get pressure without help. They can do either. It's a great place to be in because Diggs and Gilmore are up there for the best corner combos in football. Diggs is not consistently grading out well, but he does something that's better than covering people is he takes the ball a lot, which scares the hell out of defenses and changes the field. And it's not a fluke. A lot of turnovers can be random. This man consistently produces more interceptions than he deserves. So, yeah, I like this team mostly for the defense and because you can trust the quarterback. I don't care what anybody says.
Why do you have him over the 49ers?
Yeah.
We have Kyle Shanahan, who today said that Brock Purdy would have to physically melt in practice to not be the starter.
Yeah, I have them over because offensive line. The 49ers offensive line was the strength of their team at one point. It's deteriorated to now being one guy who's really good and also really old, and also the pressure on Brock Purdy to rise up. At some point, we all see the quarterback is going to have to make a play. Somebody's going to have to make a great play. And at some point in the playoffs, I've not so sure that I have confidence that Mr. Irrelevant is going to be able to do that. Maybe it can. They almost won a Super Bowl with Garoppolo. So it's incredibly possible. I'd compound all that by the turnover on defense. They're now, because they've been so successful, and we like to give all the credit to Kyle Shanahan, but the real constant throughout this serious run that they've had is their defenses have been great and have had loaded defensive line. You know what happens when you have defenses that are perpetually good? Your defensive coordinators get hired away. So they lost Robert Saleh, and then the successor to that, DeMeco Ryans was inside the building, so like understood the system, and then he went away there, and then they went outside now to get their current defensive coordinator. Is it Raheem? No, not Raheem. Well, I'm just thinking black coaches. I can do that. You can't. It was a black defensive coordinator that's been around. It's been a head coach before. 49ers D coordinator.
Steve Wilks?
Steve Wilks, yes. So Steve Wilks is a very good defensive coordinator. So I'm not saying that to suggest that he won't be good, but it is a lot of turnover, and that unit defense tends to be a little less sticky as far as year-to-year production is concerned. So we'll see. I think I wouldn't be shocked if they made it to the Super Bowl, honestly. But if you're asking me to pick a team that I have more faith in right now, it's going to be the Cowboys.
Did you see what Kyle Shanahan said they were going to do in the Super Bowl if they had won the game that Josh Johnson and Brock Purdy got hurt?
Yes, assuming Zach Martin is healthy, the Cowboys' offensive line is better, and yes, they were going to give Phillip Rivers a call.
I am so sad that we didn't get to see Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers is so sad that we didn't get to see Phillip Rivers in the Super Bowl. That would have been a great storyline. And Phillip Rivers, how mad is Phillip Rivers that Tom Brady is sitting around waiting for that call now? You're going to need like 3 quarterbacks for 2 teams to get hurt for Phillip Rivers to get that call now.
We actually got the Phillip Rivers moment, though. We actually had a 3rd and 12, 90 yards to go, a minute and a half left on the clock. It was built for him for that to happen.
Phillip Rivers would have been great.
Okay, one more question. Does Dak,
incredible
is he
trash
the second best
talker.
quarterback in the NFC?
Phillip Rivers really angered me, mostly in college and in NFL. He talked a lot of trash without cursing, but
he doesn't curse.
Yeah, he doesn't curse, but he just talks trash, like in a way that quarterbacks normally don't. And it was annoying, but we used to beat him all the time in college and in NFL, I think. Anyway, no one cares. You asked the question, but I wasn't listening.
That was great.
What was the question you asked?
Is Dak the second best quarterback in the NFC? Yeah. Is he above the tier of sort of Geno Smith and Jared Goff?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can obviously go off of last year and say, like, he didn't play better than them last year, but I think it takes more than that. In an honest moment, I like to see Jared Goff continue to play well. I like to see Geno Smith continue to play well, but I think most people in an honest moment would take Dak. Like, he's had, despite the fact that they haven't made it to the championship round, he's had good playoff games. Like, it's not like he crumbles under pressure. He had a good playoff game last year before he had the embarrassingly bad one against San Francisco. He's had good playoff comeback wins against the Seahawks. He had those, I think, 3 scoring drives in the fourth quarter his rookie year against the Green Bay Packers. Like, the big knock against Dak is like he doesn't show up in big games, which I think is probably unfair considering what he's done. He doesn't show up in every big game, but nobody does. So, yeah, I think he's obviously the most accomplished and best quarterback in the NFC after Jalen Hurts. All right.
Wild conference.
It is.
We're discussing Geno, Dak, and Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins.
It is ridiculous. It's Kirk Cousins is the only other person who will be in that conversation. And
I thought about tossing in Bryce Young.
I like Bryce Young a lot. And one of the reasons why I like him is I think they're a well-coached team, and I think they have a good offensive line. At least I thought that before I watched Hard Knocks, where they made it quite clear to me that they did not have 1, 2, or 3 people who could block Quinnen Williams at any time in the course of that entire joint practice. Hard Knocks, man. I gave up watching it a long time ago, but they sucked me back in. I'm hooked on Hard Knocks this season, and
I watch the first 2 episodes every single year and then lose steam.
Yeah. I normally don't watch any of them because I recognize that I'm a sucker for well-produced content, and I end up I watched some last year, became an immediate fan of the Detroit Lions, and then I was disappointed. So I think they made me like Zach Wilson, which I didn't have that coming. They made me like Aaron Rodgers, which he just loves everybody. Of course, this is highly edited, but all he does is say, I love you, and wants to talk to people all the time. I'm like, this kid's a sweet guy. Wears hats that says cherish the little things. He's just a sweet, wholesome football man.
The Zach Wilson stuff I find hilarious because he just has to eat it when Salah's like, our defense rocks and our offense sucked last year. And the camera slowly pans in on Zach Wilson.
So mean to Zach and the offensive lineman, but whatever. I do appreciate all the, for TV purposes, they give those pep talks all the time. And it's like the pregame speech or the beginning of the season speech. And then he gave a speech in episode 2, Robert Saleh did, about the O-line getting serious about being good or whatever. And I always laugh because even the greatest pregame speech or motivational talk has never made a tackle. It's never created a block. It's never caught a pass. That's fun, but it don't matter. People don't play harder now because you gave them a speech. I don't know. It's just kind of always weird to me. Maybe it's just me pooping on the moment. Maybe it's a great moment, but it doesn't change. If you're going to give a speech, I guess the beginning of training camp is the time to give the speech. Because
you played with Ray Lewis. You have more experience on this than anyone.
Yeah, lots of Ray Lewis speeches. But I think you win the game and the week lead up. So give me a Monday morning pregame speech. Don't give me a Sunday pregame speech hour before kickoff. It's too late for me to do anything about it. I can't go back and rewatch tape I was supposed to watch. I can't get the extra reps in now. It's too late now. Tell me how important it is on Monday. I don't want to know how important it is on Sunday. I don't care if you believe in me on Sunday. Too late.
I love
Your
this.
faith in me is not going to make near tackle. It is not going to cover any of these 4-3 receivers. Get out my face with this foolishness.
This is right. The nerds win the game during the week, finding the holes on tape.
Not at all. Practicing. I hate practice. All right. Enough said. Good times. Cut out all the mistakes that we made. JK, thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Meadowlark, for letting me use this studio. Thank you, Podville, for letting Charlie use that studio. Thank you, Christina, Sarah, Adi Khan, Christina Abbott, Sarah Buswell. I got to include the last names because lots of people named Christina.
You got that backwards.
What'd I say? Christina Buswell, Sarah Abbott, Adi Khan. Right?
There we go. And Nando's.
Shout out Nando's.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.